Welcome, dear listeners. Tonight, let your thoughts drift gently as we take you on a peaceful journey. This is a space for calm, for quiet moments, and for the kind of stories that settle your heart and slow your breath. Make yourself comfortable, close your eyes if you wish, and allow the world to soften around you. Now, let's begin with tonight's story. Today's story is titled Winterbound, A Keeper's Balance, the epic tale of light, shadow, and redemption. In a quiet hamlet nestled between green meadows and the whispering pines of the Northwood, there lived a girl named Eleonora. She was no noble's daughter, nor a maiden of grand wealth, but she possessed something far rarer, gentleness and grace that seemed to bloom from within. Her home was a modest cottage on the outskirts of Alderlin, a village where the people lived slow and simple lives. Eleonora had lived there with her stepmother and stepsister ever since her real mother passed away during the harsh winter of her childhood. Her father, a kind woodcutter, had remarried in hopes of bringing stability to the household, but fate had other plans. After a sudden illness took him away too, Eleonora was left with two women who saw her less as family and more as a convenient servant. Every morning before the sun broke the mist, Eleonora would rise to draw water from the well, feed the chickens, gather firewood, and scrub the floors. The hands that should have been drawing pictures or weaving garlands were always stained with ash or dirt. And yet, she bore it all with quiet patience. She found solace in the world outside, particularly beneath the ancient apple tree near the field's edge. It was said that tree had stood there longer than the village itself. Old villagers called it Whisperroot, for when the wind passed through its twisted branches, one could hear voices in the rustling leaves. Children avoided it. Eleonora didn't. That tree, with its soft shade and low boughs, became her haven. She'd sit there on her breaks, spinning wool on her spindle, dreaming of places far away, of golden cities, of oceans wide as the sky. One day, while she was seated at the edge of the well, her spindle resting in her lap, she heard a soft bleat from the hillside. Looking up, she spotted a lamb, its leg caught in a briar thicket. Without hesitation, she set her tools down and ran to help. The poor creature trembled as she gently freed it, speaking softly all the while. When it finally limped away, she smiled, but by the time she returned to her spindle, it was gone. It must have rolled off the well's stone ledge and fallen in. Panic flared in her chest. That spindle wasn't just a tool, it was her last gift from her father, carved by his own hands. Without thinking, she leaned over the well, hoping to catch a glimpse of it below. But the water was dark and deep. Desperation grew. She tried to reach further, to grasp the rim, and then, a slip. With a gasp, Eleonora fell. She did not hit the water. Or if she did, she felt no splash, no cold. Only a rushing wind and a sense of being drawn downward through air thick with stars. The world became strange, unreal, like the border between sleep and waking. Then, with a sudden stillness, her feet touched soft moss. She stood now in a vast field unlike anything she had ever known. The sky above was golden like dawn, though there was no sun. Flowers shimmered in shades unseen in her world, petals of pale blue fire and vines that glowed faintly with bioluminescence. Trees arched overhead with silvered bark and leaves like glass. She turned, startled by a voice. "Welcome, traveler," said a hummingbird, hovering before her, wings like lightning. "Few fall through the veil. Fewer still are worthy of where it leads." Eleonora could barely speak. "Where am I?" "The threshold between what you seek and what you must earn," the bird replied, cryptic yet warm. "Keep walking." And so she did. As she moved forward, the world shifted subtly with every step. A breeze carried scents of honeyed snow and sun-warmed stone. In time, she came upon a cobblestone path winding through a row of hills, and beyond that, a small cottage nestled among frost-touched roses. A wooden sign hung above its gate, "House of Winterbound." But before she could approach, a new voice called out, not human, but pleading. "Please, help me." Eleonora turned. To her right, nestled in a clay oven made from red earth and stone, were golden loaves of bread. They shimmered as though alive, and one of them was softly calling. "I am nearly burnt," it whimpered. "I've waited so long, could you take me out?" Startled, yet moved by compassion, Eleonora found a long wooden paddle resting nearby. With careful hands, she opened the oven's hatch and removed the loaves one by one, placing them on a woven reed mat, each side in relief. "You have a kind soul," said the largest loaf, steam curling like breath. "Not many would help a voice without a face." Eleonora could hardly respond. This place defied sense, yet she felt no fear. Only wonder. Not long after, as she passed an orchard, an apple tree unlike any she had seen spoke to her. Its voice was like wind through wind chimes. "Dear child, my branches are heavy. I've borne this fruit too long. Will you ease my burden?" Eleonora did not hesitate. She climbed gently, plucked the ripe golden apples, and laid them in her apron. As she descended, the tree shimmered with a soft light. "I remember your soul," it whispered. "Your kindness echoes across realms." She walked further until she reached the frosted gate of the cottage. A woman waited there. She was tall, clad in robes of snow and storm-cloud, her eyes like pale moonlight. Her long silver hair trailed the ground, and around her shoulders draped a mantle of owl feathers. "I am Merwin," the woman said, her voice both ice and fire. "Keeper of Winterbound, watcher of falling snow. You have passed the unseen trials. Will you stay and serve beneath my roof, child of mercy?" Eleonora, still dazed, gave a hesitant nod. Something in Merwin's presence felt ancient, yet strangely comforting, like the wind that carries home the scent of pine. Little did Eleonora know, her journey had only just begun. The moment Eleonora stepped across the threshold of Merwin's gate, the air shifted. It grew colder, not in a harsh, bitter way, but in a way that felt sacred, like the hush that descends before the first snowfall. The path leading to the cottage was paved with polished obsidian, each stone glinting faintly beneath her feet, and the rose bushes lining it were rimmed with frost, their petals glistening like sugar. Crystals. The cottage itself defied her expectations. From afar, it seemed small, quaint. But inside, it stretched impossibly wide and high, its interior vast like a grand hall in a palace carved from ice. Walls shimmered like frozen water, and the ceilings arched above like a dome of mirrored skies. Eleonora blinked in awe as she stepped inside, her boots clicking softly against crystal floors. Merwin glided ahead of her, not walking but drifting, as if her feet barely touched the ground. "You'll sleep in the southern chamber," she said. "Dawn begins in the east wing, and you'll tend the hearth until the stars return. There is work to be done." Eleonora followed, still uncertain whether this was a dream or an enchantment. The house seemed alive. Along the corridor, portraits whispered to one another when they thought she wasn't listening. A grandfather clock ticked backward, and chandeliers lit themselves with blue fire as she passed. That evening, Merwin presented her with a task, to prepare the bed of snow. "You must shake the sky," Merwin said cryptically. "Each night, when the feather bed is fluffed, the snow falls upon your world. You must not forget it." She led Eleonora to a massive bed in a tower chamber, piled high with feather-filled quilts. With a gentle motion, Merwin gestured to the bed. Eleonora hesitated, then grasped the edge and shook. Outside, through the tower's frosted window, the sky shifted. A cascade of snowflakes danced from the heavens above the earth she had left. Eleonora watched them spiral down over forests and rooftops, over shepherds' fields and frozen ponds. Her breath caught in her throat. She was the one making it snow. The days passed in a strange rhythm. Time moved differently here. 1 hour felt like a morning. A morning like a week. Eleonora worked tirelessly, not out of fear or servitude but something deeper. The house had an order. And within that order, she felt useful. Alive. She lit the hearth each dawn with embers from a phoenix-shaped candelabra. She swept halls that rearranged themselves and dusted books that told stories as she touched them. At night, she fed stardust to the garden's moon lilies, which only bloomed in silence. And Merwin watched. She never raised her voice. Never praised nor scolded. But her gaze was heavy like judgment and memory woven together. Yet in moments of stillness, Eleonora would catch a flicker of something warmer in the woman's expression. A grief perhaps. Or hope. One morning, as Eleonora stirred the kettle with lavender and nettle tea, Merwin finally spoke of the world beyond. "Every soul who enters my door comes bearing weight," she said. "Some carry guilt. Others, longing. You carry the burden of silence." Eleonora looked up, startled. "Silence. You speak to the world as though it cannot hear you. You live as though you must ask permission to exist. The words struck something deep and painful. It was true, she had spent so long surviving that she had forgotten how to be. How to ask for more. I don't know how else to be, Eleonora admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Merwin didn't answer. She only stood, reaching for the window latch. When she opened it, cold wind swept in. But with it came something else, something golden and round. Eleonora gasped. Her spindle. The very one that had fallen down the well. It floated in on the wind and landed in her palms, warm and whole. You came here for a reason, Merwin said. And the veil only opens for those whose hearts are willing to be tested. Eleonora clutched the spindle tight. A sense of resolve stirred inside her. She wasn't just here to escape her life. She was here to reclaim something. That night, as she fluffed the feather bed once more, she whispered her own words into the falling snow. I am still here. The wind outside answered in soft swirls. And so, under Merwin's roof and the shifting skies of Winterbound, Eleonora began to change, not into someone new, but into the truest version of herself. A girl who could make it snow, who could hear trees speak, who helped bread and apples not for reward, but for the love of small kindnesses. Yet, somewhere beyond the frozen veil, someone was watching. A girl with jealous eyes and a mirror heart. But that's a tale for another chapter. Far above the realm of Winterbound, in the waking world where the sky was grey and the winds bitter with December's bite, life in Alderlin had gone on without Eleonora. But not everyone missed her. Vivian, Eleonora's stepsister, stood at the edge of the same well where Eleonora had disappeared weeks ago. Her arms were crossed, her eyes sharp with suspicion. The villagers had begun whispering of strange lights in the forest, of snowfall that came without clouds, and most oddly that the quiet girl from the cottage had returned, shining like gold, then vanished once again. But Vivian remembered nothing golden about Eleonora. She remembered scraped hands, tired eyes, and the way Eleonora had made her feel small without even trying. It was maddening. She's hiding something, Vivian muttered, crouching beside the stone rim of the well. Beside her stood her mother, Hilra, arms folded in her tattered wool shawl. You say she fell in and disappeared. Vanished like a puff of smoke. Vivian nodded. And ever since then, the bread won't rise right, the hens refuse to lay, and the apple tree won't bear fruit. Something's changed. Hilra narrowed her eyes. Magic, then. Rotten stuff. But if that waif could find it, her voice turned to a hiss. Then so can you. Vivian didn't need more convincing. That night, when the moon was high and her mother snored by the hearth, she returned to the well. She didn't bring a spindle or any memory of kindness. All she brought was a mirror shard tucked into her cloak, a gift from a wandering peddler who had once whispered that it could reveal paths unseen to those who dare to envy. She peered into the well's darkness and whispered, "Take me where she went." nothing happened. Angrily, she dropped the shard into the dark. And then the wind howled. The world turned sideways. She fell. And fell. And fell. Vivian landed not on soft moss or dewy grass, but on jagged crystal. The light here was not golden, but violet and eerie, pulsing as if the sky itself breathed. The trees around her were tall, blackened things with bark like ash and leaves that curled inward. Everything here watched. She stood, brushing frost from her sleeves, and immediately began walking. She was not afraid. Fear was for the soft-hearted. She had a mission to find what Eleonora found. And take it. But the journey was not like Eleonora's. When she passed the oven built into a hill of red stone, the bread called out, but not with kindness. "You're late," one loaf hissed. "You don't care," snapped another. Vivian sneered. "You're just food." She ignored them and walked on. At the apple orchard, the tree groaned as she approached. "Leave me," it rasped, its branches sagging with rotting fruit. Vivian scowled. "You helped her, didn't you? You think I don't deserve it?" The tree's only answer was to drop a spoiled apple at her feet, black with worms. Still she pressed on. The path twisted unnaturally here, winding in impossible spirals. At times, she found herself walking through mirrors, corridors of her own face distorted. Other times, the air grew so thick with whispers that she covered her ears to shut them out. But eventually, she found it, a gate. Frosted. Tall. With the carved sigil of a snowflake split down the middle. And standing in front of it was Merwin. But not as she had been. This Merwin was shadowed. Her silver hair now streaked with midnight strands. Her mantle of feathers had changed, no longer owl's down, but raven's plume. Her eyes were still pale, but they shimmered with stormlight, unreadable. "I know why you are here," she said. Vivian stood her ground. "Then you know I won't leave without what she found." "And yet," Merwin said slowly, "you've refused every voice that asked you gently. Why should the gate open for a heart that listens only to its own hunger?" Vivian drew a deep breath. "Because I deserve it. I've been overlooked all my life. I was supposed to shine, not her. If the veil opened for Eleonora, then it owes me the same." Merwin studied her. "You speak of debts to magic as though it were coin." The silence stretched. And then the gate opened. "But understand this," Merwin said, her voice a blade wrapped in silk. "The realm of Winterbound offers reflection, not reward. And not all who enter return the same." Vivian stepped through, heedless. The house of Winterbound was not as Eleonora had seen it. It had shifted. For Vivian, It took a different shape, rooms lined with cracked mirrors, hallways that changed when her back was turned. Portraits that didn't whisper, but screamed. And the hearth never burned warm. Its flames hissed and smoked, painting shadows of monstrous things on the walls. She was given the same tasks, though no one explained them. No bread to bake. No garden to tend. Only dust to choke her lungs and feathers that turned into thorns when she touched them. Every attempt she made to find comfort was thwarted. The bed never fluffed. The snow never fell. And Merwin watched, but she never intervened. Only observed. Over days, or was it weeks? Vivian began to unravel. Her reflection changed. Sometimes, her eyes gleamed gold like Eleonora's. Sometimes, her hair turned white like Merwin's. Sometimes, she saw nothing at all. Until finally, one morning, Merwin spoke again. "You have seen enough. You must go." "But I haven't taken anything yet," Vivian protested. "That," Merwin whispered, "is the lesson." Vivian was led to the same glowing gate Eleonora had passed through. But when she stepped through, it wasn't gold that fell from the sky. It was ash. Black and clinging, it coated her skin like tar, crept into her eyes, into her mouth. She screamed, but no one in the waking world heard. Back in Alderlin, the villagers saw her emerge from the forest days later. But she was not the same. Her once bright clothes were ragged. Her hair wild, her gaze distant, her voice cracked and hoarse. Children pointed. "Isn't that Vivian? She's covered in soot." Ilra ran to her, but recoiled at the smell, something like burnt iron and frostbite. Vivian said nothing. She couldn't. The words had been taken. What remained were only shadows. And far beyond the veil, in the heart of Winterbound, Merwin stood again at the window. Watching the snow fall, this time pure, untarnished. Eleonora, in the southern chamber, slept soundly. But the realm had shifted. And something darker had awakened. Time in Winterbound passed not like it did in the waking world, but like the turning of forgotten pages, each day folded in on itself, whispered in dreams, and drifted into the next like falling snow. For Eleonora, the days since her spindle had returned were both full and strangely hollow. Her chores remained the same: lighting the hearth with fire that hummed, tending the sky bed with feather-light hands, whispering to the moon lilies, and guiding stardust into lanterns. Yet, a restlessness had settled in her bones. It wasn't just longing anymore. It was a feeling she couldn't name, like being watched, like standing on the edge of a story not yet told. Merwin was more distant now. She no longer offered cryptic wisdom or watched from the stairwells. She simply vanished, sometimes for hours, sometimes for what felt like days. And though Eleonora was free to roam most of the house, one place had always been forbidden. The northern wing. She had passed it many times, the long corridor veiled in pale curtains, the marble floor turning black at its edge, the archway of carved ice sealed by no lock, but by an ancient silence. On the first day, Merwin had warned her, the house shifts itself. But should you find the door without a name, you must not enter. Some truths carry frost too deep to thaw. Eleonora had obeyed. Until now. That morning, while dusting the starlit library, a book fell from the shelf on its own. She caught it mid-fall. Its title, The Keeper's Chamber. Bound in deep navy velvet, its letters glowed faintly like embers. Curious, she opened it only to find the pages blank. Except one. Behind the mirror, beneath the flame. Where silence lives without a name. One knock for truth, two knocks for fear. Three knocks, and she will hear. It was nothing. A rhyme. A riddle. And yet, when she passed the northern corridor later that day, the veil had been drawn aside. The archway was open. Inside, a hallway of frost-colored stone, the walls slick with ice that reflected not her face but others. Faces of girls she did not know, and yet somehow, remembered. Some smiled. Some wept. All of them shimmered and vanished when she stepped closer. At the end of the corridor, she found a door. It had no handle. No hinges. No seams. And yet, she knew. This was it. She raised her hand. One knock. Hollow. Two knocks. The floor trembled beneath her boots. Three knocks. Silence. Then the door opened. Inside, the air was different. Heavy. Sacred. The room was lit only by a single candle suspended in midair, its flame a steady white blue. It floated above a stone basin filled with still, dark water. Along the walls, carvings ran like vein symbols of the sun, of the moon, and of a spiral she'd seen before, on the back of Merwin's robes. She stepped toward the basin. And the water moved. Images formed rippling, silent, real. She saw Merwin standing in the snow, younger, with hair dark as midnight. She held a child. A baby wrapped in silver cloth. The child cried, and Merwin sang to it a lullaby made of starlight and sorrow. Then the vision shifted. Flames. Screaming. A door splintered open. Someone robed in shadow reached for the child. And Merwin vanished. The basin went still. Eleonora fell to her knees. She didn't understand everything. But she felt it. This place was not just a home. It was a prison. A sanctuary. A wound. Behind her, the door creaked. She turned, expecting Merwin. But it was not Merwin. It was the woman in the mirror. She looked like Eleonora but older, colder. Her hair was the color of dusk, her eyes sharp as broken glass. She stepped forward, barefoot on the icy floor, leaving no footprints. "Do you see it now?" the mirror woman asked. Eleonora stood, shaking. "Who are you?" "I'm the path you turned away from," she whispered. "The version of you who took what she wanted. Who didn't wait for kindness to be rewarded. Who earned power." "You're not real," Eleonora said, voice trembling. The woman only smiled. "Neither is kindness, when it costs your soul." Suddenly, the chamber pulsed. The candle flickered wildly. The mirror on the far wall cracked, spider webbing outward from a single point. Eleonora backed away, but the reflection followed her one step for every heartbeat. "She's keeping secrets from you," the mirror woman hissed. "You think you're free? You're being shaped. Molded. Like every girl before you." "No," Eleonora whispered. "I choose who I become." The reflection tilted its head. "Then choose. Leave now, or ask her the truth." With that, the chamber vanished. Eleonora awoke in her own bed, drenched in cold sweat. Her spindle lay beside her pillow. She rushed from her chamber and found Merwin in the observatory, staring into the endless sky. "You lied to me," Eleonora said. Merwin didn't turn. "I did not lie. I omitted." "Why? Who were those girls? What is this place really?" Merwin was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "This house was not made for comfort. It was built for trials. For testing souls lost between storms. You were not the first. But you, may be the last." Eleonora stepped closer. "Then tell me. All of it?" Merwin turned. Her eyes gleamed not with power but sorrow. "Very well," she said. "But you must understand, truth, once spoken, cannot be undone." And far away, in a place where snow turned to ash, Vivian stared into a mirror that no longer showed her reflection. Only Eleonora's. And it was smiling. The days following her encounter with the mirror woman left Eleonora restless. The questions choked her thoughts, and the weight of hidden truths pressed against her chest like the cold stone walls of Winterbound. Merwin's promise to reveal the whole story had stirred something inside her, a fragile thread of hope tangled with fear. That afternoon, Merwin beckoned Eleonora to the ancient Hall of Echoes. It was a vast chamber beneath the house, hidden behind walls of ice and ancient runes glowing faintly beneath layers of frost. The air was thick with silence, yet it carried a resonance, like the fading memory of countless voices. "Listen," Merwin said softly. "These are the echoes of those who came before you, the apprentices who sought Winterbound's power, and the price they paid. Elena stepped forward. The hall seemed to breathe as faint whispers rose, threading through the cold air like smoke. Figures flickered into sight, ghostly shapes of girls and boys, some cloaked in robes of starlight, others twisted in shadows. Merwin's voice carried over the murmurs. Long before you, many entered this realm, drawn by longing or despair. Some sought to heal wounds, others to claim dominion. But the house tests not your desire, but your heart. She paused, eyes gleaming. They failed. A figure materialized, a young girl with hair like raven feathers and eyes like winter ice. She stepped forward, her gaze locked with Eleonora's. This is NYX, Merwin said. The first to wield Winterbound's magic, and the last to defy it. NYX's echo spoke, her voice echoing from the shadows. Power without humility is ruin. I sought to control the storms, to bend snow to my will, but I forgot the truth. The magic flows only through the willing. The chamber darkened as NYX's echo faded, replaced by the sound of a storm howling. Merwin turned to Eleonora. Your journey is no different. You will be tested by fire and frost, by loyalty and fear. But unlike them, you carry a light that can warm even the coldest heart. Eleonora swallowed, clutching her spindle. What must I do? Merwin's hand rose, tracing a spiral in the air. You must face the reckoning, an ancient rite where you confront your deepest fears and desires. Only then can you become keeper of Winterbound. A door opened, revealing a chamber filled with swirling mist. Enter when you are ready. But beware, the reckoning reveals not only the self, but what the self fears to become. Eleonora stepped forward, heart pounding. Behind her, the echoes whispered a warning. The silver box felt heavy in Eleonora's hands, not with weight, but with the gravity of what it might contain. The delicate frost patterns etched into its surface shimmered faintly, as if alive beneath her fingertips. She hesitated a moment before undoing the tiny clasp, knowing that opening it could change everything. Inside the box lay a single key, carved from ice as clear as crystal, yet glowing faintly with an inner light. Alongside it was a folded parchment, brittle with age but covered in elegant handwriting, the ancient language of Winterbound. With care, Eleonora unfurled the parchment. It told the story of the house not just as a refuge or a prison, but as a balance keeper between worlds, a fragile border where light and shadow fought in eternal dance. Merwin's voice echoed softly behind her, the key opens the final door, but the path beyond is shrouded in sacrifice. Eleonora's heart pounded as she read on legends of former keepers who had vanished, of a darkness sealed beneath the house, and a prophecy hinting at a chosen one who would either save or doom. Winterbound. Merwin turned to her, eyes reflecting the candlelight like icy pools. You carry the hopes of many, Eleonora. But the choice is yours, to embrace the light, or to surrender to the shadows. As the house seemed to hold its breath, Eleonora felt the weight of destiny settle upon her shoulders. Eleonora stood before the final door, the ice key cold in her trembling hand. The chamber around her was silent save for the faint echo of her breath and the distant howling of the winter wind. This door was unlike any she had seen, a towering slab of crystal clear ice, etched with swirling runes that pulsed softly, alive with ancient magic. Her heart raced. Behind this door lay the truth Merwin had warned her about, the secret that could change everything. Yet with every step forward, the weight of doubt pressed heavier. Her thoughts turned to Vivian, the jealous sister who had fallen into darkness. Could she be redeemed? Or was her fate sealed by the choices she had made? And what of Merwin herself? Was she the guardian Eleonora believed in, or something more complicated? The key fit perfectly into a hidden lock near the door's center. As Eleonora turned it, the runes flared with light, and the door slowly slid open, revealing a chamber bathed in soft, otherworldly glow. Inside was a vast room, walls lined with mirrors that reflected not appearances but possibilities, visions of what Winterbound could become under different hands. She saw a world bathed in perpetual light, and another swallowed by endless night. At the chamber's center stood Merwin, her expression unreadable. You must choose, Eleonora. To bind the light and shadow in balance, or to let one consume the other. Eleonora's gaze fell upon a delicate crystal orb resting on a pedestal. Inside, flickered a swirling tempest of snow and darkness. The fate of Winterbound and your world rests with you, Merwin said softly. The silence deepened, the air thick with the weight of choice. With steady hands, Eleonora reached for the orb. As her fingers touched its icy surface, a surge of power coursed through her, illuminating the shadows within her heart. She knew there was no turning back. The chamber was hushed, the only sound the slow pulse of light from the crystal orb. Eleonora's fingers trembled as she held it, feeling the swirling storm of snow and shadow within. It was more than power, it was a living essence, fragile yet immense, waiting for her to shape its fate. Merwin's gaze bore into her soul. This is the moment, Eleonora. You must decide what kind of keeper you will be. Eleonora closed her eyes, the faces of those she loved and lost flashing through her mind, her kind father's gentle hands, the coldness of Vivian's envy, the quiet village waiting beneath the snow. Her heart ached with the weight of it all. Would she bind light and shadow in fragile balance, preserving the delicate harmony? Or would she let one side prevail, risking ruin for renewal? Time seemed to slow, the very air thick with anticipation. Then, with a clarity born from all she had endured, Eleonora spoke softly, I choose balance. Light and shadow must coexist. One without the other is emptiness. The orb flared brilliantly, a burst of white and black light that filled the chamber. Eleonora felt power surge through her veins, not overwhelming, but steady like the steady beat of a heart. Merwin smiled, a mixture of pride and relief. You have passed the final test. The true keeper is not the one who commands power, but the one who respects it. As the light faded, the chamber transformed. The mirrors now reflected a world renewed, Winterbound, alive with gentle snowfall and soft shadow, a place of peace and mystery. Eleonora looked to Merwin. What comes next? The path of the keeper is eternal, Merwin said. You will protect the balance, guide those who come after, and face challenges we cannot yet see. Outside, the sky shimmered with the first dawn in many moons. Eleonora felt the warmth of new beginnings, tempered by the knowledge of the shadows she must never ignore. Her journey was far from over. The dawn light filtered softly through the frost-coated windows of Winterbound, painting the crystalline halls in hues of pale gold and icy blue. Eleonora stood at the heart of the vast observatory chamber, the weight of her new title settling upon her shoulders like a mantle both heavy and sacred. She was now keeper guardian of the fragile balance between light and shadow, between warmth and cold, between life and silence. Her breath caught in her chest as she gazed out across the endless expanse of Winterbound, the realm suspended between worlds, where snow fell silently and time folded in on itself like an eternal spiral. But despite the beauty and stillness, Eleonora could feel the undercurrent of unrest, a pulse of latent magic, waiting, watching, demanding. Merwin approached silently, her robes trailing like a shadow in the light. Her eyes, pale and inscrutable, reflected a deep weariness that Eleonora had never seen before. The balance you chose to protect is delicate, Merwin said softly, voice echoing through the chamber. You will face trials that test not only your strength but your heart. Remember, Keeper, power is not the absence of fear, but the courage to stand despite it. Eleonora nodded, clutching the silver key that had opened the final door. It pulsed faintly in her palm, a reminder of the choices made and those still to come. Where do I begin? Eleonora asked, her voice steady but laced with uncertainty. Merwin gestured toward a wall of shimmering mirrors, each one a window into a different facet of Winterbound's reality. Start by understanding what you protect. These mirrors reflect not only the world as it is but as it might be. They hold the stories of those who came before you, successes and failures, light and darkness intertwined. Stepping forward, Eleonora placed her hand on one mirror. Images blossomed: a girl like herself, fierce and hopeful, tending a glowing hearth; another shadowed and twisted by envy, a world transformed by kindness and sacrifice. Each reflection whispered lessons, warnings, echoes of ancient songs sung beneath the falling snow. Days and nights blurred as Eleonora immersed herself in the history and magic of Winterbound. She learned to weave the snowflakes into protective wards, to listen to the silent language of frost on glass, and to channel the cold not as a weapon, but as a shield. Yet, the more she learned, the more she realized the true challenge lay not in the magic itself, but in those who coveted it. One evening, as the silver moon hung low, a whisper reached her, carried by the wind beyond the frozen walls. A name, NYX. The first keeper, the one who had defied the balance and vanished into shadow. Eleonora's heart quickened. Was NYX's legacy truly lost? Or was it waiting to be reclaimed? Merwin entered silently, her eyes reflecting the same unease. The past is never truly gone. The choices you make will awaken echoes, both friend and foe. Eleonora felt the weight of destiny tighten around her like a frost-laced chain. But beneath it all, a spark of fierce determination burned. She was keeper now. and Winterbound's fate rested in her hands. The chill in the air thickened as Eleonora delved deeper into the ancient lore of Winterbound. The mirrors in the observatory whispered more urgently now, their reflections flickering with images of forgotten times and silent battles fought beneath the falling snow. Nyx's name echoed like a cold wind through the halls, an echo that seemed to gather strength with every passing moment. One night, guided by a dream as vivid as waking life, Eleonora found herself standing before an ancient door carved with runes older than Winterbound itself. The door was heavy, adorned with symbols that pulsed faintly in the dim light. Merwin appeared beside her, her expression grave. "This is the Vault of Echoes," she said quietly. "It holds the memories of the first keeper and the secret that nearly tore Winterbound apart." Eleonora's fingers brushed the icy surface of the door, feeling a tremor beneath her touch. "What happened to Nyx?" Merwin's gaze darkened. She sought to control the storm itself, to bend the magic to her will without heed to balance. Her ambition shattered the harmony, unleashing shadows that nearly consumed us all. The door groaned as it opened, revealing a chamber filled with swirling mists and flickering lights. At its center floated a spectral figure, Nyx, her form shifting between light and shadow, eyes glowing with fierce intensity. "You carry my blood," Nyx said, voice echoing with both accusation and plea. "Will you repeat my mistakes or break the cycle?" Eleonora stepped forward, heart pounding. "I choose balance. I will protect Winterbound, not for power, but for peace." Nyx's form wavered, then smiled faintly. "Then you are worthy to learn the truth of the shadows and the light they guard." As the mist swirled around them, Nyx's memories unfolded, a tale of love, betrayal, sacrifice, and a darkness that lingered beneath the very foundations of Winterbound. Eleonora realized that to save Winterbound, she must confront not only external threats but the shadows within herself and the legacy Nyx had left behind. The Vault of Echoes had closed behind her, leaving Eleonora standing alone in the cold silence of Winterbound's deepest halls. Nyx's spectral words lingered like frost upon her skin, a chilling reminder of the shadows she must face not only without, but within. For nights uncounted, Eleonora pored over ancient texts and whispered prayers beneath the silver moonlight. She learned that Nyx's downfall was not born of mere ambition, but of a curse, a dark wound inflicted by a betrayal so deep that it fractured the very essence of Winterbound's magic. Merwin had been silent on this, but now, in the quiet moments before dawn, she finally spoke. "The curse is old," Merwin said, voice barely a breath. "It was born of love twisted into hatred, of a keeper's heart broken by loss and deceit. Nyx's magic was poisoned not by her will, but by those who feared the power she held." Eleonora's mind reeled. Who betrayed her? Merwin's gaze clouded. "Not who, but what. Winterbound is alive. It feels. And it judged her too harshly." Eleonora understood then the house was both refuge and prison, protector and executioner. To heal Nyx's legacy, she must heal Winterbound itself. Her quest led her beyond the house's walls, to the forest of whispering pines, where the trees held memories in their bark and the wind carried secrets across realms. Guided by a fragment of NYX's fading essence, Eleonora ventured deep into the forest, the snow crunching beneath her boots like the ticking of a great clock counting down to destiny. There, among the gnarled roots of the oldest pine, she found a tear of Winterbound, a crystal pulsating with frozen sorrow and hope. Legends told that this tear could break any curse, but only if wielded with a pure heart and unwavering courage. Elena reached for it, feeling the cold sting her fingers, but also a warmth that spread through her soul. Suddenly, a shadow burst forth, a twisted shape born of ice and rage, the physical manifestation of the curse itself. It snarled, lunged, and the battle for Winterbound's future began. The forest around Eleonora thickened into an eerie silence, the shadows lengthening as the cursed entity surged forward, its form a tempest of jagged ice and malice. The very air grew brittle, each breath a sharp shard against her lungs. Her heart hammered, but her grip on the tear of Winterbound did not falter. The creature roared, a sound like cracking glaciers and breaking hopes. It lunged, claws raised to rend the fragile balance Eleonora had sworn to protect. She raised the tear, its frozen light blossoming into a radiant shield. The curse's fury met the brilliance, shattering into shards of darkness that melted into snowflakes upon the ground. Yet the battle was far from over. The shadow reformed, twisting with deeper rage, shifting into forms that reflected Eleonora's own fears, the faces of lost loved ones, the bitter voice of Vivian, the cold gaze of Merwin when she had withheld truth. Eleonora's resolve wavered momentarily, the emotional weight threatening to fracture her spirit. But then, a whisper echoed from the depths of her being, a voice gentle and sure. "You are stronger than your fears." She remembered her father's kindness, the warmth of the apple tree's shade, the courage in her own heart. With a cry that echoed across the frozen pines, Eleonora unleashed the tear's true power, a surge of pure light intertwined with the deepest shadows, binding and healing rather than destroying. The curse screamed, faltered, and dissolved into a cascade of shimmering snowflakes that danced in the cold breeze. As calm returned, Eleonora knelt among the fallen snow, tears freezing on her cheeks, a mixture of relief and sorrow. From the shadows emerged a figure NYX, no longer spectral, but solid and radiant, her eyes filled with gratitude and peace. "You have freed me," NYX said softly. "And with me, the curse." Eleonora smiled through the cold. "Together, we will heal Winterbound." The thought after the battle was gentle yet profound. Winterbound itself seemed to sigh a breath of relief carried on the crisp air that filled the crystalline halls and frost-laden forests. With NYX freed from the curse's grasp, a new chapter was beginning, but neither Eleonora nor NYX knew all the challenges that lay ahead. Together, they returned to the heart of the house, the observatory of echoes where Merwin awaited, her expression softer than Eleonora had ever seen. The ancient keeper, burdened by centuries of silence, finally allowed herself a small smile. "You have done what no keeper before you could," Merwin said, her voice tinged with reverence. "You have restored balance, not through power alone, but through compassion and courage." Eleonora felt the weight of those words settle, mingling with the lingering shadows of the past. But what now? How do we protect Winterbound from what's still unseen? NYX stepped forward, her gaze sharp and clear. The curse was but a symptom. The true threat lies in the worlds beyond, where desire and fear fuel forces that seek to unravel the fabric between realms. Merwin nodded gravely. Winterbound is a nexus, a gate between the waking world and realms of magic and shadow. Its balance is precarious. We must prepare. Over the following moons, Eleonora and NYX began training the next generation of apprentices, children drawn by fate and whispered legends to the house's shimmering doors. Each brought unique gifts, fears, and desires, mirroring the complex dance of light and shadow that shaped Winterbound itself. Among them was a boy named Corbin, whose eyes flickered with stormlight, and a girl called Lyra, whose laughter could warm even the coldest frost. Their presence sparked hope but also ignited old rivalries and fears, reminding all that balance was not a destination but a continuous journey. As Eleonora guided them, she discovered her own magic, evolving snowflakes weaving into intricate patterns of protection, her voice carrying songs that could calm restless spirits, and a newfound ability to glimpse possibilities yet unwritten. Yet, even as Winterbound flourished, a whisper of unrest stirred beyond the threshold. A shadowed figure watched from the edge of the realms, cloaked in veils of twilight, eyes glinting with intent. "The Keeper has returned," the figure murmured. "But the game has only just begun." The fragile piece of Winterbound was a delicate veil stretched over shadows deeper than any had imagined. Though the air was filled with the crisp scent of thawing snow and the soft murmurs of new apprentices learning the ancient ways, beneath the surface, unseen currents stirred, carrying whispers of dissent and old grudges. Eleonora stood in the great hall, the flickering light of enchanted sconces casting long shadows across the crystalline walls. Her gaze was steady but heavy, her mind weighed down by the knowledge that every choice, every step forward, risked unraveling the balance she and NYX had fought so hard to restore. Merwin approached quietly, her presence as steady as the frozen earth beneath their feet. "You sense it too," she said without preamble. Eleonora nodded. "The shadows are restless. The darkness beyond the veil is not yet tamed." Merwin's eyes softened. "The figure watching us from the twilight, she is old as the first snow. Known only as Valera. Keeper turned exile, she seeks to unravel the ties that bind our worlds." NYX's expression darkened. "Valera was once like us, but her heart twisted with jealousy and ambition. She believes balance is weakness. Power must dominate." As days folded into nights, strange phenomena began to ripple through Winterbound. The apprentice's magic faltered unpredictably, shadows lengthened unnaturally, and eerie melodies floated on the wind, songs that unsettled even the oldest spirits. Eleonora and NYX convened in the Observatory of Echoes, poring over ancient scrolls and divinations, seeking a way to confront the growing threat. Among the apprentices, Corbin and Lyra displayed remarkable resilience, their budding powers shining like beacons in the encroaching gloom. Yet even their courage was tested as nightmares plagued their dreams, visions of a world consumed by endless night. Eleonora knew that the coming conflict would demand more than magic. It would require unyielding faith and sacrifice. One evening, beneath a sky heavy with swirling snow, Eleonora found herself alone in the whispering pines, drawn by a voice both haunting and familiar. There, cloaked in twilight, stood Valera, her eyes glittering like shards of broken glass, her smile cold and knowing. "You who balance light and shadow," Valera said, voice like the crackle of ice, "do you understand the true cost of your choices? The sacrifices yet to come." Eleonora met her gaze, unflinching. "I will bear whatever burden it takes to protect Winterbound." Valera's laughter was a brittle echo. "We shall see." The veil thins. The game begins. With that, she vanished into the swirling snow, leaving Eleonora with a chilling promise and a path shrouded in uncertainty. The first light of dawn had barely brushed the frost-kissed peaks of Winterbound when a tremor ran through the heart of the realm. The air, usually crisp and still, pulsed with uneasy energy. Eleonora stood at the edge of the whispering pines, eyes fixed on the swirling mists curling like serpents among the ancient trees. Her apprentices gathered nearby: Corvin, whose stormlight flickered with determination, and Lyra, radiant as ever, but shadowed by a quiet fear. The weight of the coming trial pressed on them all. Merwin appeared silently, her voice calm but carrying an unspoken urgency. "The veil is fracturing. Valera's influence grows stronger. Tonight, you will face the trial of shadows, a test that will reveal your true strength and the resilience of your spirit." Eleonora nodded, heart stealing. "We will not falter." As twilight descended, the apprentices entered the ancient clearing where the veil between worlds thinned to its most fragile state. The air shimmered, and ghostly figures flickered at the edge of perception: lost souls, echoes of forgotten memories, and phantoms born of fear. The trial began. Each apprentice was drawn into visions tailored to their deepest insecurities. Corvin confronted storms that mirrored the turmoil within his heart. Lyra faced the silence left by those she loved and lost. Eleonora's trial was no less daunting. She found herself alone in a vast mirror labyrinth, reflections fracturing into endless versions of herself, each one embodying doubt, anger, sorrow, and hope. The voices of past keepers whispered warnings and encouragements, challenging her resolve. With every step, Eleonora battled shadows that sought to consume her light. Yet, she remembered Nyx's words: "True strength comes not from denying darkness, but from embracing it as part of oneself." Emerging from the labyrinth, Eleonora found her apprentices waiting, their eyes shining with newfound clarity. Together, they had faced the shadows and survived. But as the veil shimmered and closed behind them, a chilling wind whispered a promise. "This is only the beginning." The apprentices gathered around the glowing hearth, its flames casting long shadows that danced like specters upon the walls. Corvin, whose stormlight had brightened through the trial of shadows, paced restlessly, his brow furrowed with concern. Lyra sat nearby, fingers entwined nervously, her usual radiant smile dimmed by the weight of looming threats. Eleonora stepped forward, her voice calm but resolute. "The veil is weakening. Valera's shadow spreads, threatening to sever the bonds that hold Winterbound together. Merwin's voice echoed softly from the shadows. Valera's exile was never meant to be permanent. Her hunger for power has only grown, and she has allies in the realms beyond, forces that seek chaos and ruin. The weight of her words pressed upon them all. As night deepened, the observatory's mirrors shimmered, revealing flickering visions of distant realms, chaotic landscapes twisted by dark magic, and armies cloaked in shadow preparing to breach the veil. Eleonora's gaze locked on one vision, a swirling tempest where Valera stood atop a crumbling throne, her eyes burning with cruel intent. "The first breach is imminent," Merwin warned. "We must strengthen the bonds of the apprentices, for their unity is Winterbound's greatest defense." Over the following days, Eleonora led rigorous training, not only in magic but in trust and understanding. She fostered alliances, mended old wounds, and taught that strength came from the harmony of light and shadow within each soul. Yet, beneath this camaraderie, tension simmered. Corvin wrestled with doubts about his own powers, fearing the storm within him might one day consume his light. Lyra grappled with loss and the fear of becoming vulnerable again. And Eleonora herself faced the loneliness of leadership, burdened by the knowledge that any mistake could mean the unraveling of all she held dear. One evening, as snow whispered against the frosted windows, a messenger arrived, an owl with feathers dipped in twilight, bearing a sealed scroll from the distant realms. Its seal bore the mark of Valera. Eleonora broke the seal, reading the chilling message. "The balance you cherish is a fragile lie. Embrace the shadow or perish in the cold. The game has begun." A heavy silence fell over Winterbound. Eleonora folded the parchment, her resolve hardening. "We will face whatever comes," she declared. "Together." The apprentices and keepers gathered beneath the ancient apple tree, its branches once again heavy with golden fruit, a symbol of hope amid encroaching darkness. As the first snowflakes of a new winter began to fall, Eleonora felt the weight of destiny settle upon her, a burden she bore willingly, for the fate of Winterbound and the worlds beyond. The cold wind howled through the crystalline spires of Winterbound as dusk bled into night. Eleonora stood atop the observatory's highest tower, her breath forming pale clouds against the darkening sky. Below, the apprentices gathered in the courtyard, faces set with determination, hearts steeled for the storm to come. The message from Valera had pierced the fragile calm, igniting a fire beneath the realm's delicate balance. The veil was thinning faster than any had foreseen, and the forces beyond were stirring, hungry to breach the borders and claim Winterbound's power for themselves. Eleonora's thoughts raced as she prepared the wards that would protect the house, the intricate runes weaving a shimmering lattice of frost and light around the ancient walls. She called upon Nyx and Merwin, the former keeper and the guardian, to stand with her in defense. "Tonight, we face what was once thought impossible," Eleonora said, voice steady but fierce. "Not just the darkness without, but the shadows within." The apprentices formed a circle, their hands linked as they summoned their burgeoning magic. Corvin's stormlight flared, crackling like distant thunder, while Lyra's laughter sang through the air, weaving warmth into the biting cold. But even amidst the unity, Eleonora sensed fractures, fear, doubt, the weight of past wounds threatening to unravel the bonds they had fought so hard to forge. As midnight approached, the first wave struck. Valera appeared at the veil's edge, a figure cloaked in shifting shadows, her eyes glowing with cruel intent. Behind her surged legions of shadow wraiths, creatures born of nightmare and cold despair, their forms flickering between worlds. Winterbound swords flared to life, the runes glowing fiercely as the realm itself seemed to awaken. The battle was not just fought with spells and steel, but with wills and hearts intertwined. Eleonora and Nyx led the charge, their magic weaving together in a dance of frost and flame. Merwin's voice rose in an ancient chant, calling upon the very essence of Winterbound to stand firm. The courtyard became a tempest of light and shadow, the apprentices' power tested beyond anything they had imagined. Corbin unleashed bolts of stormlight that split the darkness, while Lyra's songs healed wounds and bolstered courage. Yet, Valera was no mere enemy, she was a force of nature, relentless and cunning. She struck at the very core of their unity, whispering doubts and fears into their minds, turning shadows against the light. Eleonora faced Valera directly, their eyes locked in a fierce battle of wills. "You cannot hold this balance," Valera hissed. "Power demands sacrifice, Eleonora. What are you willing to lose?" Eleonora's grip tightened on her staff. "Everything. If it means protecting those I love." With a cry that echoed through the veiled realms, their magic clashed, frost meeting shadow, light battling despair. As dawn broke, the battlefield was silent. Winterbound stood, battered but unbroken. Eleonora looked to her apprentices, scarred but resilient, and knew the war was far from over. But so long as they stood together, there was hope. The first light of dawn struggled to pierce through the lingering mists that clung stubbornly to the edges of Winterbound. The battle had left the realm scarred fissures in the frost-lined walls, shattered runes flickering with unstable magic, and a heavy silence that pressed upon every soul within the crystalline spires. Eleonora sat alone in the observatory of echoes, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. Though victorious, the cost had been great. The apprentices bore marks of the conflict, both physical and spiritual, and the realm itself seemed to pulse with a restless energy, as if anticipating a darker storm yet to come. Merwin approached, her steps soft but purposeful. In her hands, she carried an ancient tome bound in cracked midnight blue leather, embossed with the same spiral symbol that adorned the deepest halls of Winterbound. "This," Merwin said, placing the tome before Eleonora, "is the Chronicle of Shadows. It holds the true history of Valera, the Keeper who fell from grace and became the exile." Eleonora traced the spiral with her fingers, feeling the tremor of power contained within the pages. "Tell me everything," Eleonora urged. Merwin's voice grew hushed, heavy with the burden of truth. "Valera was once a keeper like you, bound by duty and honor. But beneath her resolve lay a fierce hunger for freedom, for control, for a power that transcended balance. When she sought to reshape Winterbound by bending the shadows to her will, she fractured the delicate harmony we strive to maintain." Eleonora listened, the walls closing in with the gravity of the tale. She was cast out, but her exile did not silence her. Instead, she became a shadowed force, gathering those discontented with the old ways, weaving alliances with dark realms beyond the veil. Her goal, to overthrow the Keepers and remake Winterbound in her image. Nyx entered silently, her presence a calm contrast to the storm within Eleonora's mind. Valeura's legacy is not just destruction, Nyx said softly. She embodies the consequences of unchecked ambition and the pain of betrayal. Eleonora's gaze hardened. Then we must be stronger not just in magic, but in unity and wisdom. Together, they delved into the chronicle, uncovering maps of forgotten realms, rituals of power, and warnings etched in ancient script. But as they turned the pages, a sudden chill swept through the room. The shadows flickered, and the air thickened with foreboding. Outside, the winds whispered a name, Valeura. And the game was far from over. The air was thick with tension as the final confrontation drew near. Winterbound, once a realm of serene balance, now pulsed with the raw energy of impending change. Eleonora stood at the center of the grand hall, surrounded by her apprentices, Merwin and Nyx, each carrying the scars and wisdom of their battles past. Valeura's shadow loomed over them all, a dark storm gathering at the edges of the realm. The fate of Winterbound and perhaps all worlds connected by the fragile veil rested on the choices Eleonora was about to make. The battle unfolded like a tempest. Light clashed against shadow, ancient spells intertwined with raw emotion. Valeura, fueled by betrayal and ambition, wielded a power that twisted reality itself, threatening to unravel the very fabric of existence. But Eleonora, grounded in the balance she had fought so hard to protect, channeled the combined strength of her allies and the lessons learned from her trials. Her magic shimmered with both frost and flame, embodying the harmony between light and shadow. With a final, resonant chant, Eleonora unleashed a wave of energy that pierced the darkness, binding Valeura's power and offering her a choice: redemption or oblivion. Valeura, caught between fury and revelation, hesitated. In that moment, the weight of her past and the possibility of forgiveness wavered within her. Choosing light, she relinquished her grasp on shadow, dissolving into a cascade of shimmering snowflakes that danced away on the winter breeze. As dawn broke over Winterbound, a new era began. The realm healed, its magic renewed by the courage and compassion of its keeper. Eleonora looked to the horizon, her heart full. The journey had been long and fraught, but the balance endured, a testament to the enduring light within even the deepest winter. Tuta. Winterbound, the Keeper's Balance, the epic tale of light, shadow, and redemption. Amota. In the mystical realm of Winterbound, suspended between worlds of light and shadow, young Eleonora rises as the Keeper tasked with preserving the fragile balance of magic and fate. Guided by the enigmatic Merwin and the redeemed Nyx, the first Keeper burdened by a dark legacy, Eleonora faces daunting trials, confronting ancient curses, shadowed exiles, and the relentless Valeura, whose ambition threatens to unravel all. This epic tale unfolds across frost-laden forests, crystalline halls, and veiled realms, weaving a story of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring power of compassion. Join Eleonora and her apprentices as they battle inner demons and external darkness, learning that true strength lies in embracing both light and shadow. Will Winterbound survive the siege of shadows? Will Eleanor's choice forge a new dawn or eternal night? Experience a journey of magic, mystery, and redemption in Winterbound, the Keeper's Balance.